All right, this is going to be a demonstration of a supported split squat. Now, a split squat is basically just moving up and down from a lunge position. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, and you move things up and down. And what happens with this sort of motion here is you're working through the whole range of the hip. You're very much getting into a deep stretch of the hip flexors on the back leg, and with the front leg, you're working the support. And we're going to take this all the way down toward as full a range as we can. Now, there's a bunch of ways to modify this, and you can do this freestanding. And the thing is, if you do it freestanding, you got to work your balance, and that can be a bit much of a challenge if you're trying to do a bunch of these. So you don't want to necessarily fight your balance. If you need to use a wall or use a stick or a pole or something to support yourself, use it and try to get as deep into the full range as you can and take things back and forth. Now, I'm going to show you a method of doing this here because I do recommend doing this with some repetition, but taking it slow. And when you're doing it with just with body weight and not with added weight, I do recommend just adding some pulsing at the very bottom to really get deep into the range where you're extending the back leg, getting the hip flexor, and working the glutes on that side. So I'm just going to go through 5 repetitions here just to show you what I'm doing. So to come into this, now I've got one hand on the wall, and the back leg is going to be the inside leg between the wall and my supporting leg. So I'm going to step my right foot back, and I've got the box right here. You can have this sort of thing close to you if you just need it for you when you come down low. If you're at a clear wall and basically there's no furniture or pictures or anything, you can just let your hands slide down with you just to help you keep your balance. And if you're more in the middle of a room, you could just start where you're able to balance here and your hands free, and then as you come down and really deepen this out, that something is there to support you to actually see that you can actually stay upright and not fight the position. And again, you can always take a pole on one side or on the side of the back leg if you need. But taking this back and forth, now there's a few ways to work into this. I want you to keep your hips squared. So my right hip's pulling forward, my left hip's pulling back, rather than opening out to the side. So keep this squared to the front to really work this. And this is a relatively long stance. I'm going to keep the front foot flat for this one. So coming in, I'm just going to sink this down, bring the knee just above the floor, and then come back up. And I recommend you taking this back and forth 5 times like this. And then the 5th time, come down low, hold, and then just pulse. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back up. And then you'd switch legs from there. Now, if you want to take this deeper, so I did this with a long stance and the front foot flat. Take this even further and just work the mobility of both legs and a deeper bend into that front knee, I recommend a shorter stance. Now, your knee mobility may or may not allow this, and there's places in between that you can go. You can have a really long stance or a very short stance where you're coming down low and you'd fold the front leg completely. Now, for this, I just have to adjust this to feel this out. So what this comes down to is you're doing this on the toes of both feet, and both heels will be lifted. So as I bring this down, I'm going to bring this to the point where my front leg is folded completely, and I've almost got the heel up toward my butt, and I still got my hip squared, and I'm pulling that hip, my back hip forward, and my front hip back. So from here, it's going to be the same thing. Start from here, bring it down low, and come back up. And notice, as I'm moving into this, I'm keeping my shoulders pulled back. I'm trying to hold the arch in my spine rather than rounding forward, because this is going to give me the length all through the hip flexor for the back leg. And try to get as deep into that as you can. Now again, after you've done this about 5 times, I do recommend staying down, hovering the knee, and then just pulse, bouncing into that back knee a little bit. And you will definitely feel this on the hip of the back leg. And then come back up again.